Essays on Untouchables and Untouchability, Religious, by Babasaheb Ambedkar. Chapter 1, Part 6. The answer to this question will reveal itself if it is borne in mind that there is a difference between a community and a society and between kinship and citizenship. A community, in the strict sense of the word, is a body of kindred. A society is a collection of many communities or of different bodies of kindreds. The bond which holds a community together is called kinship, while the bond which holds a society together is called citizenship. The means of acquiring citizenship in a society are quite different from the means of acquiring kinship in a community. Citizenship is acquired by what is called naturalization. The condition precedent for citizenship is the acceptance of political allegiance to the state. The conditions precedent for acquiring kinship are quite different. At one stage in evolution of man, the condition precedent for the adoption into the kindred was unity of blood. For the kindred is a body of persons who conceive themselves as spring from one ancestor and having in their veins one blood. It does not matter whether each group has actually and in fact sprung from one single ancestor. As a matter of fact, a group did admit a stranger into the kindred, though he did not spring from the same ancestor. It is interesting to note that there was a rule that if a stranger intermarried with a group for 7 generations, he became a member of the kindred. The point is that fiction, though it may be, admission into the kindred requires as the condition precedent unity of blood. At a later stage of man's evolution, common religion in place of unity of blood became a condition precedent to kinship. In this connection, it is necessary to bear in mind the important fact pointed out by Professor Robertson Smith that in a community the social bond is made not of men only, but of gods and men, and therefore any stranger who wants to enter the community and forge the bond of kinship can do so only by accepting the god or gods of the community. The statement in the Old Testament, such as those of Naomi to Ruth, saying, "Thy sister is gone back into her people and unto her gods," and Ruth's reply, "Thy people shall be my people, and thy God my God," or the calling of the Moabites the sons and daughters of Chemosh, are all evidences which show that the bond of kinship in a community is the consequence of their allegiance to common religion. Without common religion, there can be no kinship. Where people are waiting to find faults in the argument in favor of conversion, it is better to leave no ground for fault finders to create doubt or misunderstanding. It might therefore be well to explain how and in what manner religion is able to forge the bond of kinship. The answer is simple. It does it through eating and drinking together. The Hindus, in defending their caste system, ridicule the plea for interdining. They ask, what is there in interdining? The answer, from a sociological point of view, is that in everything in it, kinship is a social covenant of brotherhood. Like all covenants, it requires to be signed, sealed, and delivered before it can become binding. The mode of signing, sealing, and delivery is the mode prescribed by religion, and that mode is the participation in a sacrificial meal. As said by Professor Smith, what is the ultimate nature of the fellowship which is constituted or declared when men eat and drink together? In our complicated society, fellowship has many types and many degrees. Men may be united by bonds of duty and honor for certain purposes and stand quite apart in all other things. Even in ancient times, for example, in the Old Testament, we find the sacrament of a common meal introduced to seal engagements of various kinds. But in every case, the engagement is absolute and inviolable. It constitutes what in the language of ethics is called the duty of perfect obligation. Now, in the most primitive society, there is only one kind of fellowship which is absolute and inviolable. To the primitive man, all other men fall under two classes: those to whom his life is sacred and those to whom it is not sacred. The former are his fellows, the latter are strangers and potential foemen, with whom it is absurd to think of forming any inviolable tie unless they are first brought into the circle within which each man's life is sacred to all his comrades. If for the untouchables mere citizenship is not enough to put an end to their isolation and the troubles which ensue therefrom, if kinship is the only cure, then there is no other way except to embrace the religion of the community whose kinship they seek. The argument so far advanced was directed to show how conversion can end the problem of the isolation of the untouchables. There remain two other questions to be considered. One is, will conversion remove their inferiority complex? One cannot, of course, dogmatize, but one can have no hesitation in answering the question in the affirmative. The inferiority complex of the untouchables is the result of their isolation, discrimination, and the unfriendliness of the social environment. It is these which have created a feeling of helplessness which are responsible for the inferiority complex which cost him the power of self assertion. Can religion alter this psychology of the untouchables? The psychologists are of opinion that religion can effect this cure provided it is a religion of the right type, provided that the religion approaches the individual not as a degraded, worthless outcast, but as a fellow human being, provided religion gives him an atmosphere in which he will find that there are possibilities for feeling himself the equal of every other human being. There is no reason why conversion to such a religion by the untouchables should not remove their age old pessimism which is responsible for their inferiority complex. As pointed out by Professor Elwood, religion is primarily a valuing attitude, universalizing the will and the emotions rather than the ideas of man. It thus harmonizes man on the side of will and emotion with his world. Hence, it is free of pessimism and despair. It encourages hope and gives confidence in the battle of life to the savage as well as to the civilized man. It does so, as we have seen, because it embraces vital feeling. And psychologists tell us that the reason why it embraces vital feeling is because it is an adaptive process in which all of the lower centers of life are brought to reinforce the higher centers. The universalization of value means, in other words, in psychosocial terms, that the lower nerve centers pour their energies into the higher nerve centers, thus harmonizing and bringing to maximum of full efficiency life on its inner side. It is thus that religion taps new levels of energy for meeting the crisis of life, while at the same time it brings about a deeper harmony between the inner and the outer. Will conversion raise the general social status of the untouchables? It is difficult to see how there can be two opinions on this question. The oft quoted answer given by Shakespeare to the question, what is in a name, hardly shows sufficient understanding of the problem of a name. A rose called by another name would smell as sweet, would be true if name served no purpose, and if people instead of depending upon names took the trouble of examining each case and formed their opinions and attitudes about it on the basis of their examination. Unfortunately, names serve a very important purpose. They play a great part in social economy. Names are symbols. Each name represents association of certain ideas and notions about a certain object. It is a label. From the label, people know what it is. It saves them the trouble of examining each case individually and determine for themselves whether the ideas and notions commonly associated with the object are true. People and society have to deal with so many objects that it would be impossible for them to examine each case. They must go by the name. That is why all advertisers are keen in finding a good name. If the name is not attractive, the article does not go down with the people. The name untouchable is a bad name. It repels, forbids, and stings. The social attitude of the Hindu towards the untouchable is determined by the very name untouchable. There is a fixed attitude towards untouchable which is determined by the instinct which is embedded in the name untouchable. People have no mind to go into the individual merits of each untouchable, no matter how meritorious he is. All untouchables realize this. There is a general attempt to call themselves by some name other than the untouchables. The Chamars call themselves Ravidas or Jatavas. The Doms call themselves Shilpakars. The Parayas call themselves Adi Dravidas. The Madigas call themselves Arundhatyas. The Mahars call themselves Chokhamela or Somavamshi. And the Bhangis call themselves Valmikis. All of them, if away from their localities, would call themselves Christians. The untouchables know that if they call themselves untouchables, they will at once draw the Hindu out and expose themselves to his wrath and his prejudice. This is why they give themselves other names which may be likened to the process of undergoing protective discoloration. It is not seldom that this discoloration completely fails to serve its purpose. For to be a Hindu, it is for Hindus not an ultimate social category. The ultimate social category is caste, nay subcaste, if there is a subcaste. When the Hindus meet, may I know who you are, is a question sure to be asked. This question, I am a Hindu, will not be a satisfactory answer. It will certainly not be accepted as a final answer. The enquiry is bound to be further pursued. The answer Hindu is bound to be followed by another. What caste? The answer to that is bound to be followed by another. What subcaste? It is only when the questioner reaches the ultimate social category, which is either caste or subcaste, that he will stop his questionings. The untouchable who adopts the new name is a protective discoloration, finds that the new name does not help, and that in the course of relentless questionings, he is, so to say, run down to earth and made to disclose that he is an untouchable. The concealment makes him the victim of greater anger than his original voluntary discourse would have done. From this discussion, two things are clear. One is that the low status of the untouchable is bound upon with a stinking name. Unless the name is changed, there is no possibility of a rise in their social status. The other is that a change of name within Hinduism will not do. The Hindus will not fail to penetrate through such a name and make the untouchable and confer himself as an untouchable. The name matters, and matters a great deal, for the name can make a revolution in the status of the untouchables. But the name must be the name of a community outside Hinduism and beyond its power of spoliation and degradation. Such name can be the property of the untouchable only if they undergo religious conversion. A conversion by change of name within Hinduism is a clandestine conversion which can be of no avail. This discussion on conversion may appear to be somewhat airy. It is bound to be so. It cannot become material unless it is known which religion the untouchables choose to accept. For what particular advantage would flow from conversion would depend upon the religion selected and the social position of the followers of that religion. One religion may give them all three benefits, another only two, and a third may result in conferring upon them only one of the advantages of conversion. What religion the untouchable should choose is not the subject matter of this chapter. The subject matter of this chapter is whether conversion can solve the problem of untouchability. The answer to that question is emphatically in the affirmative. The force of the argument, of course, rests on a view of religion which is somewhat different from the ordinary view according to which religion is concerned with man's relation to God and all that it means. According to this view, religion exists not for the saving of souls, but for the preservation of society and the welfare of the individual. It is only those who accept a former view of religion that find it difficult to understand how conversion can solve the problem of untouchability. Those who accept the view of the religion adopted in this chapter will have no difficulty in accepting the soundness of the conclusion. The end.